everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovators Mindset Podcast. I got my good friend, Dwight Carter. Dwight Carter is someone I've known for years, and we actually met, we were just talking before the conversation. We actually had met about 10 years ago on Twitter, and we've stayed very close friends. And this is always the weird thing for me, I actually couldn't even tell you how many times I've seen Dwight in person. It's got to be under 10, but close to. But we always connect. We chat about our families, and we've had some amazing conversations. Dwight is an incredible leader. He's someone I really look up to, someone I consider a very good friend of mine. And so, Dwight, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I'm really pumped that people are going to get to hear some of the great things that you do. And if you could just kind of share a little bit about what you're doing now and how you got to that point in education, I'd love for the audience to hear about that.
Okay, George, I echo everything you said. You are one of the first 3 educators I followed on Twitter over a decade ago. And I remember, then I'll get to the question. I remember I saw your blog. No, I joined Connected Principals. That's what it was. And you were so accommodating, got me connected. We talked about it a little bit more. And I asked a question through the direct message, and you said, "Can I call you?"
I remember it was Saturday night, man. It was a Saturday night.
Saturday night. It was late too. And we talked for 35, 40 minutes, and we never, ever had a conversation prior to that.
Right.
And from that point on, I was like, George is my dog. Like, he is cool. And you basically lived out everything that you would write about. And so,
try to.
So from that point on, I felt like you're somebody I can connect to, I can seek advice from, and just learn from. And like I said, you've been a major blessing to me personally and professionally. You really have. Well,
before you share your journey, you probably, to be honest with you, when I know you were a principal when we connected, and I was a principal too, and you probably followed those 3 people because we were like the only 3 principals on. It wasn't like, oh, this guy's doing great stuff. It's like, well, there's nobody else. There's like only a few administrators at that time, right?
Like, you're one of the early adopters, the pioneers that blazed the trail for people like me and countless other, administrators, elementary, middle, and high school. Like, so.
Yeah. Thank you. I sometimes it's better to be first than smart, I guess.
That's one way of putting it. So yeah. But right now, I'm an assistant director at Eastland Career Center. A career center is a career and technical school. We have 16 programs that students can get a license or a credential to go directly to the workforce. And we are connected to 16 different high schools in Central Ohio. So that means 16 high schools, juniors and seniors can then pick and choose which program they want to attend or be a part of. They apply, we accept, and then we end up with like 650 to 675 students between juniors and seniors. And they will get at the end of their 2 years, they get a career passport, which includes their credential and all their other licenses that they may get through their program. And they also get a high school diploma from their home school. And students can come here full-time, or they can be part-time, meaning if they're a senior, they're here in the morning, and then they go to the homeschool they're here in the afternoon, and they come from their homeschool in the morning, and vice versa. So it's wonderful. Like I said, this is my first year in career tech. When I was a principal at Gahanna Lincoln High School, we're an associate school of Eastland Career Center. So I always came to the career passport ceremony. We always had conversations with the directors and the programming director and the superintendent. So I have a strong connection to Eastland Career Center. Always have. And now that I'm actually working here, it exemplifies rigorous and relevant learning. So I absolutely love it.
What are some of the programs? We talked about this briefly. When you hear the career tech, what are actually specifically some of the programs that students would be taking there?
We call them hard labs, and we have soft labs. Hard labs are like, auto tech, electrical engineering, or electrical technology, where kids are learning how to be an electrician. We have welding. We have pre-engineering. We have a new aviation program that started last year. That's a slower growing program. So that's still in its infancy stage. We have landscape design and management, agriculture, big diesel and ag. interactive media, graphic design, medical office, dental assisting, and I'm sure I'm missing one, or criminal justice as well.
Mm-hmm.
So kids can pick and choose whatever program they want, and they forge ahead. 65% of our students still go to a 2 or 4 year college. Then 35% go directly to the workforce or the military.
And that's amazing. Like I think about when I went out of high school, I actually, and probably like most people, I don't want to say just my generation, but forever, it's like, oh, like you walk out and you have no clue what you want to do. But it seems like early on, these students are actually finding some of these career passions and pathways through this program and really developing. And I think it's really powerful. Like as I'm listening to you though, one of the questions I have and I'm thinking about is that a lot of this stuff is super hands-on. Like it's right. So how, like with all the pandemic stuff, we're recording this at the end of May. Like how have you been able to accommodate kids learning in those pathways, when they can't necessarily be in the buildings?
It's been a huge challenge, especially for our hard labs, because you can't learn how to be an electrician just doing things online virtually. You can't learn how to troubleshoot why a carburetor is not working on a vehicle online. You have to be hands-on. So because the beauty of it is that it happened at the end of the third quarter, so we have a fourth quarter left. So the kids got a bulk of their hands-on learning, the first 3 quarters of the year. So our lab instructors, they spend a lot of the time teaching the technical skill and the manuals and understanding the language during the fourth quarter. That was all online. So they had to pivot,
Right.
And then the state also allowed some grace and then extended licensure programs for the summer. So we've had to be really flexible and agile. But our softer labs, most of the stuff was online anyway, but it also gave kids more time and more flexibility to complete some of the assignments. And some of them went even deeper because they had more concentrated time to focus on a specific topic or a specific project.
And that like the idea of that, of just kind of thinking about how some of those jobs that you're describing and some of the things, I think about my time in high school, and there was kind of an emphasis, and I don't know if it's different where you grew up in Ohio versus, where I grew up in Canada, that it was almost like if you didn't go, not even to a 2-year college, right? But if you didn't go to a 4-year college, there was kind of this stigma that was floated on top of you that you were somehow a failure. You were somehow destined.
College or bust.
Right. And like that's something that I've always struggled with, because I think a lot of people, like it's almost like, and this is one of the conversations I've had with people all the time, is that when we are talking about success in education, are we defining that for someone else, or are we actually getting kids actually figure that out themselves? Because you and I do different things, and we might deem success as being something totally different, but we could both be successful.
Right.
But for some reason, when I went to school, there was this pressure that you were only successful if you did this, right? And I always give this analogy, is that I have 3 university degrees, and when a plumber comes to my house to fix something, I am not the smartest person in this house. Right. And they have intelligence that I don't. And I think we need to play. And I love that there's this emphasis on the value of that work that you're doing. And so I think it's really amazing. I think it's something that we need to really be comfortable with. I was having a conversation, I can't remember with who, just recently, talking about how little things like teachers putting on the door where they went to university and college, and it's like, what's it telling kids?
That sends a message. That sends a very powerful message that to be successful, to be like me, you have to take this path.
Right.
What's unique about career tech is that all of our, we call our teachers instructors. So all of our lab instructors are from the profession. They're from the career pathway. So our welding instructor was a welder. Our electrical tech engineer or electrical tech instructor was an engineer in electricity. Our auto tech was a phenomenal auto technician for Toyota Lexus, and he goes through rigorous training and courses every single year to stay up and keep up his certifications.
Mm-hmm.
So they practice and are teaching what they experienced, and it's amazing. So they have a skill set that I don't have.
Right.
I didn't go through that training. And so what's happening now in the state, and I think it's happening in the nation, is that at least in the United States, the pendulum has swung from college or bust to there's multiple pathways to success. And so, me growing up, if you talked about the Career Center, it had a stigma to it.
Right.
When career centers were started in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, especially in the 60s, there's a very negative history when it comes to career centers because AYOs, all you others, will go to the Career Center. It's because it was a dropout prevention program. And for the last 25 years, that has completely changed, at least for those in the industry. However, parents and adults who grew up with the mentality of it being a dropout program have an extremely hard time. I'm speaking generally, have an extremely hard time with their kids saying, yeah, I want to go to the Career Center because I want to learn how to do this, that, and the other. And so what we're learning is we have to target usually the moms to say, no, your kid is not being pigeonholed into one way. They now have multiple options. They can choose to go directly to the workforce. And this is even great. This is better now because of the college debt crisis that we have in our country.
Mm-hmm.
So they can come out, they can get a license or a credential, go directly to the workforce, and now their employer pays them to go to school. So instead of them having, a mountain of debt at 19, 20, 22 years old, they have a career that's 3-4 years into it, and they have college courses under their belt that's being paid by someone else. So it's
I wish I would have done that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I said, things have changed so much in the last few years because I think we get a lot of support from our state government. And the language of the adults has changed.
Good.
Which now makes it okay for students to make these options and not feel less than.
And I love that you, sorry, go ahead.
When we still have ways to go to make it like, we're just a part of the normal conversation, and there's no hesitancy or negative feelings or apprehension about different options for education.
Yeah, and I love that you said that you're talking to parents about that too, because if we grew up being told that, or I don't even know if I was told that, or just kind of like that was kind of the message that was conveyed.
More of a cultural norm that
exists.
Yeah.
And then you think about, so I grew up, now I'm a parent. Am I going to like kind of pass it off? Like Kalia, actually, one of the things, like, it's funny because, every day today, right now, she wants to be Taylor Swift. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She wants to be Taylor Swift. That's her thing today. But one of the things she just loves, she's like, she actually said one day, I want to be a builder and a fixer. And I thought it was like an interesting terminology. And I'm like, where did you, like, what? And she saw, it was like some home and garden show. And honestly, it's interesting because like, she did not get that from anything that I do. She wasn't watching me fix stuff because I cannot do that. Yeah. So it was like she saw something. She loves home and garden TV. And
Abby too. She wants to be a designer.
Yeah.
Right now, because she watches all the shows on HGTV. Right now, her favorite is Bargain Mansions. So lady goes in, condemned mansion, big house, tears that thing down from top to bottom, and completely rebuilds it. So Tuesday night, 9:00, every Tuesday. She's like, Daddy, time to watch Bargain Mansion.
I get it.
So it's awesome, man.
It's awesome they want to go into it. I just don't, I can't watch that stuff. I don't know why. It's like,
you're creative.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm not watching anything now. Once sports went away, I just don't even want to turn on the TV. Hey, actually, I should ask you, because I know, did you watch the Last Dance stuff?
Oh man.
What'd you think?
I thought it was an amazing story. I thought it was great foresight in having having that last year documented. Like
Yeah.
that was amazing foresight. And then Phil Jackson recognizing the writing on the wall. I mean, he was told this is going to be your last year. And like we were talking about before we got on, he could have wallowed in the pity of, oh no, I'm being let go. Why? For whatever reason. He's just like, okay, that's the situation. How do I cope with it, adjust with it, and transform my thinking? And his thinking was, his players knew it. He's going to theme this year, i.e., the last dance. And I think having that theme drove them to break through all the distractions that was a part of the team, from the negative commentary about Jordan,
Yeah.
Jordan's maybe interactions with his teammates, Rodman shenanigans, Pippen, his pouting and things that I was blown away by some of the things he did, especially when he refused to go into the game the last seconds too. Like, I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Did you know that one before?
Never.
Yeah,
Never.
I knew that one.
Yeah.
That was messed up.
The role of John Paxton, Steve Kerr, it's just that BJ Armstrong, like that, they had a phenomenal team. Ron Harper, his contribution. So to see all that come to play, I think we can learn. There's so many lessons in that, and then how to adjust to, what's potentially coming to an end, and how do you prepare for that, but how do you excel and be present at the same time?
So one of the things that, there's a million things I thought was interesting about it, but when that was happening, I was in high school, like super into basketball, and like we'd watch the games and then we'd go play basketball. Like that was a thing. And now you watch a game and you are on social media while you're watching it. And it was kind of interesting because it was like living in a time where those games were kind of happening, but also seeing social media. And like we actually had it because of it was on ESPN. We don't have ESPN in Canada, so I actually would not go on any social media on Sunday, even though I know everything that happens, right? And because I wouldn't go on till I watch it on Netflix on Monday.
Right.
And it was like, it was really cool. It was like, there was a nostalgia about, I love that it wasn't binge. Like it wasn't like because if they would have had all 10 episodes, I would have watched them right when they came out.
Right.
And it was like giving me, it reminded me of like Thursdays in college when I watched Friends and Seinfeld on Thursday. Like it was like
blogged about that. Yeah. That anticipation.
Yeah.
It creates like an event that you look forward to. And so like you, I think you're like, what I looked forward to the Bulls games.
Yeah.
When they were, back in the day. And I was in my career when that was happening. So we look forward to the Bulls games playing. And I had that same anticipation waiting for the episode.
I honestly, I was thinking, would I rather be, if you gave me a choice right now, would I rather be watching the finals or this? Like the actual NBA finals? I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. I know this is going to be good every episode. I don't know if a finals game could be a blowout by 50. But the one thing, and it really kind of ties into this, one of the things in the work that you do, one of the things that I thought, and I've actually always, Phil Jackson is like, has some strange way of thinking. One of the things that I've loved about him, and when I became a coach, I tried to emulate, was I can tell, I watched so much basketball, I could tell when a coach is going to call a timeout. You can totally feel it. Phil Jackson would actually never call a timeout at the same time as other coaches, because he taught his players, you need to figure it out. You need to figure it out in the flow of how you work through this. But like one of the things that really ties into the work that you've been doing, not only in this, part of your career, but I know when you were a principal, was he was all about like everyone on that team. There was Michael Jordan, who's the best, right? But everyone felt they had like an equal contribution to doing something that mattered to that team. Even if you were the 12th player, you never actually would ever see any time, you felt like you were valuable, and he would do things to bring out your talents and gifts, right? And like you do that all the time in your work. And so like, what are some of the ways that educators can kind of emulate that in the classroom, in a school?
Yeah. So a phrase that I picked up when I was in Gehenna, I picked this up from our secondary curriculum coordinator. We were just having a conversation one day, and she said, you create the conditions for X, Y, and Z to happen. I'm like, create the conditions. Like, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think we're having a conversation about instructional leadership and how I felt like I needed to do more. I needed to be more involved in instructional leadership. She's like, keep this in mind. Instructional leadership happens not by position. It happens by people working together, and you don't necessarily have to be the person who's the leader, but you create the conditions for instructional leadership to happen. And I was like, man, that's powerful. So I've stolen that and been using that. So to answer your question, in the work that we're doing as educators, we create the conditions for students to develop personal skill that applies beyond the curriculum. So, connecting with other people, being adaptable, having a flexible mindset, integrating, using technology for learning. Like, we create the conditions for those things to happen, but also how to problem solve. Because right now, like, no one knew this problem was coming until, like, our kids didn't know March 18th was going to be their actual last day in the building. So they had to pivot. They had to problem solve on, how do I get my stuff, and where do I get food from now, and how do I get a computer, and how do I do my lab? So we were getting 1,001 questions. So kids had to figure some things out on their own, and we had to pivot to think, how do we create the conditions for our students to still be successful, especially those who have hunger trauma, like they don't have food like everyone else. And so we had to kind of muddle through all those things and figure out the conditions that we set up prior to the pandemic. How do we make those present and available and accessible to all of our kids, even now? So it was a huge challenge, but we adjusted. Our director, Jackie, who I was telling you about, she was here every Monday night from 4 to 6 with our head of our cafeteria, Bonnie Moran, distributing meals to kids who wanted it. And so, and kids felt comfortable. They felt comfortable coming up, getting the meals. They felt like this is a safe place. This is a place where people care about them. This is a place that they can be vulnerable and say, yes, we have a need as a family. So, yeah.
So, and something that I've always said is, because, if you do your job as outlined by your government, blah, 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 and you teach that curriculum, it's actually very limiting. And I always tell people, the curriculum is the minimum of where we can teach our kids, but we can always go above and beyond that, right? And one of the things I've said to people forever is that if we only teach kids the curriculum, we failed them. There's things beyond that, we want to develop in our kids, that they can adapt and thrive in these types of situations. And I think that one of the things that had really drawn me to you was really your positivity and your message. And you talked about, I remember you sharing this, and I'm going to get people I want you to share details with people, really that message of be great. Yeah. And it's like, every time it's funny because it can't actually visualize your name without seeing be great. And because I think in letters all the time, but I actually see Dwight Carter be great together. So can you talk about that message and how that came about and what that means?
Yeah, so that message came about when I was in my first year as a building principal. I was a middle school principal at Gahanna Middle School East. So I was driving to work one day, and I was thinking about, how I communicate through email and whatnot to staff, and send out parent notifications and parent messages, basically the newsletter. And, I was writing out, yours truly or sincerely at the end, to close out a message. And I thought, everybody does that, and it doesn't really mean anything. I want to do something different. I don't know why that came to mind. So I was driving to work, and what came to mind immediately was be great. And I was like, I kind of like that. So I started putting that on all the messaging, literally emails, letters, everything. And then 3 or 4 weeks in, sometimes I struggle with the confidence. So I thought, man, this kind of cheesy. This is stupid. I'm just going to stop doing it. No one gave me any feedback that it was cheesy or that it was stupid or it didn't mean anything. But that's the story I was telling myself. Right? So about 3 or 4 weeks, like I said, I stopped. And then a couple of days later, one of our veteran teachers, I think she was teaching, 33 years at that time. very well respected, very influential. She came to my office one day, just on the whim, knocked on the door, said, "Hey, you got a minute?" Like, "Yeah, come on in." She says, we noticed, she was speaking on behalf of others as well. She's like, "We noticed you stopped using 'be great' at the end of your messages, and we want to know why." She said, "Because for me, that reminded me and inspired me to do things better and to really be great. Like, I missed that." I'm like, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah, it's a little thing, but it made a big difference. So we missed that." Ironically, I got another email from a parent asking, "We noticed in your newsletter you stopped saying 'be great.' Did something happen? Did somebody tell you not to do that, or did you get in trouble?" Or, I mean, they were like concerned. I'm like, "Nah, I thought it was kind of cheesy." They said, "No, I use that at work now because I got it from you." I'm like, "Wow." So from that point on, I started using it every single day. And then, after using it for 3 or 4 years, I started to really think about, okay, what does that really mean to me? Yes, it's a cute, catchy phrase, but what does it truly mean? So then I started thinking about, what values I want to exhibit, and what beliefs and concepts do I want to put into practice. And that's where literally I started thinking, okay, what does that really mean? And this is when I was really maturing and really strong in my faith, in terms of my walk with Christ. And I started thinking about my missions or purpose statement, which is to positively change lives and impact futures. And one of the things I've always been known for, and that came relatively easy to me as an educator, is establishing strong relationships with my students, and then a great rapport with colleagues. So what came to mind was the G in great stands for grateful. So just be grateful for um, the intangible and tangible things that you receive every single day. And that costs no money, takes a little bit of time. The R stands for relational. Be relationship oriented. My favorite quote as an educator, I saw it in 1991 when I was taking my first class, or 1990 was, I forgot. No significant learning happens without significant relationship. Right. Dr. James Comer. So that was the R. And then start thinking about positivity, but there's no P in great. Enthusiasm is there. Authenticity is one that I really struggle with. So I'll put that in there because that's something I want to become better at. And then I think I look at myself as a constant learner. So instead of learning, I use T, or teachable. So be great stands for be grateful, relational, enthusiastic, authentic, and teachable. And so it's been, and I think about that truly. I truly think about that every single day, and how I can exhibit one of those concepts throughout my day.
Well, it's funny that you actually said authentic. I struggle with that. And you saying that you struggle with authenticity actually is kind of authentic.
Yeah.
That was interesting. It's funny because I saw that little statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instills confidence in people that you connect with, right? And people look at those things as, just maybe little things they don't really pay attention, but it does. That confidence matters. And I saw this is actually funny. I saw this on TikTok yesterday, and it's just so in line. And I'm going to mess up the story, but it was about a student who went into an SAT, totally thought they were going to fail, hadn't do anything for it. And they ended up getting, and I think it was like a 1450 or something like that, which is a really high score. Right. And after that, just totally changed. And they actually went on to do these great things. Right. And like, I'm not big about test scores and all these other things, but what's interesting is that there was like the story went that the person actually got a message from the people that deliver the SATs, and they actually said later that there is a miscommunication. So the student had scored like a 450 actually, but they went on to all the success, and they went on to all these things. And then he said, because I believed that I had this ability now that it instilled in me, I was able to do these great things. Yeah. And so maybe I wasn't able to do, as well on a test, but I had a certain belief in myself that actually allow me to do, this great stuff. And I think that's really something that as educators, it is so important that we don't only instill in our students, but the people that serve the students as well. Because a lot of times we talk about, if you look at such a deficit mentality in education, and so many, like one thing goes wrong, and then we make a 4-year plan on how we're going to fix it. But we don't talk about 4 years about, look at the 100 things we've done right. And then we're like, oh, why are teachers demoralized? It's because you made a 4-year plan because you got a bad score on one thing.
Yeah, and you took 4 years to make it.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's an excellent point. And I think one of the things I learned early on in my career, especially when I was being trained as a critical friends group coach, was a concept called appreciative inquiry. And that really stuck with me because you, instead of identifying the one thing that didn't go right, you recognize and celebrate the 9 things that did go right. And so you take a deep dive and appreciate the things that are actually where you're most successful. And that has really impacted, I guess, my outlook and perspective on the work that I do. Now, I don't always, and this is, again, talking about authenticity and vulnerability, which is ironic that I'm about to say this. I don't always apply that to my own personal life.
Right.
Like, I will dwell on a mistake and use I should have language as opposed to here's what I did do, as opposed to here's what I should have done, because I can't go back and change that. And so I recognize that it's easier for me to pour that into other people, not as easy to pour that into myself. Mm-hmm. So it's ironic. It truly is. But that's where I think that's where the Be Great message will help me out in helping self-talk, so that I can truly live out what I believe.
I'm guilty of this too, right? You do a presentation, you do something, you get like 99 people say you're awesome, and then one person's like, you suck, and they don't give you any feedback. They're like, what did I do? Why are you mad at me, right? But a really good piece of advice, I think I read it, I can't remember who said it, was basically, you need to take the advice that you'd give to a friend, because we're like, really,
yeah,
we always have these awesome solutions for other people, but then when it comes to like ourselves, it's really hard to kind of get out of that. And so, Dwight, we're short on time here, and I really thank you for taking the time with me. But before we go, all this stuff with the pandemic, school closures, a lot of stress, a lot of things really tough. And I've been asking the same question of every guest. What is like the one best piece of advice you give to people right now?
Be present, be in the moment. Don't worry about the future. It's coming one way or the other, and we just have to adapt to whatever changes are coming. So focus on being present.
Yeah, and I think that's powerful. A lot of times we're so lost in something we did a long time ago, or something that might be coming up, that we don't actually appreciate what is going on right now and the little moments that we have. And so I'll tell you straight up, one of the things that I really appreciate right now is I got a chance to sit down and talk with you, because our paths don't cross enough. And so I really appreciate you. I'll tell you, when I remember making that phone call to you, and you asked me for help, it really helped me too. And it was really great to just sit and chat with you. And it really brought a realness, because a lot of times it was just, we were talking to avatars.
Right.
And then when we actually had a conversation, and you really helped me, because I was a new principal, and just I think you had more experience than I did, and I learned a lot from you too, and continue to learn from you. And you're someone I really keep dear to my heart, my friend. So I'm glad we could chat today.
One regret with you. You were in Ohio. It was probably 7, maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a small conference at the ESC. You were there, and I'm like, oh my God, like George is actually here, and he's the keynote, and I'm following him. Failures. This is not going to work. But anyway, so you had set up, like, you are big at going to professional sporting events, football or basketball. You said, okay, let's go to a Cleveland Browns game. I didn't take you seriously. So you came into town. You was like, okay, what time you want to go? I'm like, go where? You were going to a Cleveland Browns game, and I'm like, wow, he was serious. And I didn't take you up on that. So, man, yeah, it was like, oh, yeah. So that's my regret, man.
Well, we could go to a Cleveland Cavaliers game now, and it'll be like $8. So we go to as many games as possible. Because once LeBron left, that ticket went down.
Oh, man, yeah. That's
all right, man. Okay, well, I'll take. Then I'm writing this down. You owe me a game.
I owe you, man. So when you're not home, man, we gotta hang out.
All right, man. Well, Dwight, thanks so much for being here. Please give a follow Dwight. We're gonna put his Twitter in the links below, so you connect with him and connect with his blog. Dwight, it was awesome talking with you as always, and I can't wait to see you again. And so make sure you send me an appointment because we're gonna talk next week too.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, buddy.
Okay.
Take care, man.
Thanks everyone for listening. Have a wonderful day.